So you're shopping for a diamond. You're probably seeing terms thrown around everywhere. Words like ethical, conflict-free, sustainable. But what do those words actually mean? The real challenge today isn't just finding a gorgeous stone, it's figuring out if the claims made about it, if they actually hold up. So let's cut through all that marketing talk and find out what these labels really mean for you.
Which brings us to the big question right up front. When a seller puts that ethical label on a diamond, what are they really promising? We're going to break down what that word is supposed to mean, what it actually delivers, and maybe most importantly, what it often leaves out.
Okay, so the first thing you've got to understand is that the term ethical isn't some official industry-wide standard that everyone has to follow. It's really more of a marketing umbrella. And under that umbrella, you can find a whole lot of different ideas, some of which are, a lot more provable than others.
And look at how broad this definition really is. It's kind of fascinating. For one seller, ethical might just mean it's a lab-grown diamond. For another, it might mean it just barely meets those basic conflict-free standards. And for a third, it could just be about their company's general policies. So the key takeaway here, the word ethical is a starting point for your questions, not the final answer.
This table really just perfectly illustrates that gap between a marketing claim and the actual proof. Take a look at ethically sourced. It sounds so official, so comprehensive, but it doesn't automatically prove that anyone tracked that stone from the mine all the way to the market. Even lab-grown, which seems pretty simple, doesn't tell you a thing about the energy used to create it. These terms are just starting points, not the finish line.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty and decode some of the most common terms you're going to run into. And the big one, the one that started it all, is conflict-free. It has a very specific history and a very specific meaning.
When you hear the term conflict-free, it's almost always pointing back to one thing, the Kimberley Process. This was a really important international agreement that was designed to stop the flow of so-called blood diamonds, stones that were being sold to fund wars. It was a huge landmark step for the industry.
But, and this is a big but, its scope is very, very specific. Complying with the Kimberley Process is a vital baseline, for sure, but it is not a total ethics report card. Just look at what it doesn't cover. Things like fair labor practices for workers, the environmental impact of a mine, or that deep traceability from the ground to your hand. A seller can be totally compliant and still leave a lot of other ethical questions unanswered.
So here's the crucial point in a nutshell. Conflict-free is a very narrow, defined term. It's all about preventing war funding. Ethical, on the other hand, is this much broader, fuzzy concept that can include things like labor and environmental standards, but doesn't have to. A diamond can absolutely be conflict-free without meeting all the standards a thoughtful buyer might consider ethical.
Okay, let's switch gears for a second to another point of confusion that trips up a lot of people. We need to separate the story of where a diamond came from, its origin, from the cold, hard proof of its quality. These are two totally different but equally important conversations.
This is such a critical distinction to make. On one side, you have certification. That's a grading report from a respected lab, like GIA, IGI, or AGS. It's an objective, scientific breakdown of the diamond's physical properties, the 4 Cs. On the other side, you have the sourcing story. That's the narrative the seller tells you about where it's been. One is about quality, the other is about its background.
And let's be absolutely crystal clear about this. A grading report is not an ethics report. It tells you the facts about the stone itself, but it makes zero claims about the conditions it was mined or cut under or how it got to the market.
This brings us to the real turning point for any serious buyer. Instead of getting tangled up in a single label, the focus really needs to shift. We have to move from asking about the product itself to asking about the seller. Is the person or company selling you this diamond actually being transparent? So, how do you do that? How do you figure it out? Well, this last section is all about giving you the practical tools you need to push past the marketing language and get to the verifiable proof. This table right here should be your new best friend. It turns you from just a passive buyer into an active investigator. If you see a claim like certified diamond, your very next question should be, okay, which lab? A good sign is they tell you the name right up front. A caution sign is when they just use the word vaguely. You can use this exact framework for every single claim you see.
And here it is, your non-negotiable checklist. Before you even think about buying, you need to run through these 6 steps. Confirm the stone type, verify the grading report, read every single detail, ask about treatments, and always, always check that return policy. But that last step, that's the most important. Make your final decision based on proof, not just a comforting word.
Because at the end of the day, true confidence in a purchase this big doesn't come from a single marketing word. It's built on a foundation of 3 pillars: clear disclosures, independent documents to back them up, and a fair, transparent return policy that protects you.
And so that's where we're left. The most powerful question you can ask has to change. By shifting your focus from the label on the diamond to the transparency of the seller, you go from just hoping for the best to actually verifying the facts. And that, right there, is how you buy with real confidence.